decades, he discovered critically important roles for glia, securing his scientific legacy and launching the careers of scores of young scientists who now advance the field he and they essentially created. Had Ben been a less spectacular scientist, he would still have had a major impact on medical research as a mentor and advocate for young scientists. Elite science is hyper-competitive, and individual faculty wield enormous power and influence over their trainees. Doctoral students and postdocs can get ground up by professors more intent on building their own CVs than the careers of their trainees. Ben was merciless in his criticism of such behavior. For him, scientific research was a privilege and a joy to be shared. His trainees became family, his children. Their success was more important to him than his own. He educated, and when needed, chastised and prodded the scientific community to be better teachers, more generous and caring mentors. He wrote 2 widely read articles on the subject, one advising students how to find a mentor, the other, written when he knew he was dying, urging faculty not to compete with their own students, but to be generous and let young scientists take their discoveries with them to launch their independent careers. But remarkably, Ben was more widely known not for his magnificent science, or for elevating mentoring to an art form, but for his advocacy on behalf of women in science. That is how we became friends, since I too am a biologist who advocated on behalf of women. To understand the impact of Ben's advocacy requires a brief history of women's advancement in academic science in the Barbara/Ben era. To explain how Ben single-handedly helped to level the playing field requires examples, including examples of Ben's inimitable style of persuasion. First, some history. When Barbara Barris went to college in 1972, as with young women today, it didn't occur to her that she would encounter gender discrimination. The 1964 Civil Rights Act and affirmative action efforts, and women's liberation in the late 1960s and early 1970s were taking care of that problem. Besides, science is supposed to be a meritocracy, and Barbara was a brilliant student. True, she had occasional inexplicable experiences. As an MIT undergrad, Barbara was the only student in a class to solve an unusually challenging math problem, but the professor refused to give her credit. He accused her of cheating, saying her boyfriend must have solved it. But Barbara didn't have a boyfriend. To her, the professor's behavior was incomprehensible and intolerable. Unfairness. Not obviously gender discrimination. As for the professor, he knew Barbara Barris must have cheated. What other explanation could there be since, as everyone knew back then, girls can't do math? Women who had started their training and scientific careers a decade earlier than Barbara had begun to make sense of these unfairnesses. They came to understand that they constituted a previously unrecognized form of discrimination that today we call unconscious gender bias. Psychologists had already discovered this bias by controlled experiments, but most women scientists discovered it through personal experience. Their discoveries began to emerge in the 1990s and shocked the scientific community. In 1997, 2 Swedish women scientists sued to obtain the records of a prestigious postdoc fellowship competition and discovered that a woman had to be 2.5 times as productive as a man to win a fellowship. In 1999, the president of MIT endorsed a report from a committee I had chaired that documented that tenured women scientists were paid less, given fewer resources, and received fewer awards than men of comparable